Now that Coach Eric Morris has brought his family, the Eskimo Joe's country, to be part of our family, we can finally breathe a sigh of relief and give thanks to the dude basically saying, hold my beer and watch this quick turnaround, meaning the future of Cowboy football is in secure hands for maybe longer than we think.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are we feeling, our Big 12 brethren? Shout out to the regulators. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, at visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at All Day State. Today, we're partially brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more, especially right now. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, head on over to FanDuel.com to place your live NFL bets all season long. Get with FanDuel today. Meanwhile, we get to slide back into this Coach Eric Morris conversation as he's enjoying cheese fries with his family, getting the Eskimo Joe's experience. He was also dropping bangers in his recent press conference. And yeah, I had to go back and listen to it twice. Maybe it's because I'm dense, but in listening to it the second time, I found a couple other things that I wanted to mention. One of those being just his stance on how competitive he thinks Oklahoma State is going to be immediately. We'll dive into some of that in segment 2. But the common consensus is that Eric Morris is going to utilize Oklahoma State as a stepping stone job, right? This is the national conversation. And naturally, a lot of people are going to lean towards, well, if Joey McGuire eventually retires, then Texas Tech's automatically going to come after Eric Morris if he has success at Oklahoma State. While all of that very well may be true, I think that the family component isn't necessarily being talked about a bunch. Obviously, he brought his wife, Maggie, his sons, Jack and George, with him. And the Stillwater area is obviously important. The school choice is going to be very, very important. And correct me if I'm wrong, Texas Tech fans out here, but doesn't it seem like Eric Morris is the kind of guy that once he gets solidified, if he has a good thing rocking and rolling, he's not going to jump at the nearest, shiny object, the next shiny toy, because he did decide on Oklahoma State over several other options. And a lot of that seems to stem from his upbringing, being in the cattle or the farming industry and understanding what it's like to wake up before, the butt crack of dawn, to go to sleep well after everybody else. That work ethic has seemed to kind of glide with him seamlessly throughout his career, demanding an opportunity to play football at the collegiate level, demanding an opportunity to be a coach at the collegiate level, demanding that he gets access to athletes that not very many other schools in the country are recruiting or any other coaches are recruiting. Eric Morris is that guy, and the work ethic does stem a lot from his upbringing. So now that he's got his family here, if things go really well at Oklahoma State, I just don't see him as an individual that's going to pull his kids out of school and reroute his life and his wife and his family if it's not a necessity. That is all insinuating or assuming that he's going to have a lot of success at Oklahoma State. But I think the parallels between the beginning of Mike Gundy and the beginning of Eric Morris are hard to deny, other than the alumni factor. But we needed a guy that was willing to work later hours than everybody else. And we know that that is still applicable because he mentioned it in regards to his wife, Maggie. And the only correlation I have there is, I spent almost 8 years in the oil field, and you're gone 6-7 months out of the year pretty regularly. So it is very difficult to make stuff like that work. In the coaching profession, when you're young and you're hungry and you're on a mission to prove something, that is exactly how it is. And at some point in time, hopefully Eric Morris has that Mike Gundy level treatment in Stillwater, Oklahoma, because Mike Gundy got us here. He earned it. He deserved it. NIL got crazy. The transfer portal era got crazy. It got away from Mike Gundy. And now we enter this new era of Cowboy football. But the offensive creativity was something that Mike Gundy was very well known for. He was an offensive coordinator at Maryland before coming back and being in the offensive side of the ball for Les Miles, and then he got the job. In the beginning, he was the dude that would work all night, sleep in his office, stay in the film room to try to design new ways and new concepts to overcome some of the disadvantages they may have had. And then enter the Dana Holgorsen era, where Dana got to kind of teach things to Brandon Weeden, and Brandon Weeden got to teach things to Todd Monken, and that equaled our only Big 12 championship. There's a lot of similarities there. Offensively, Oklahoma State was always known as a place where you could put up 600 yards, you could rush for 200 yards, you could potentially win a Biletnikoff, you could potentially win a Doak Walker, you could be up for a Heisman. The defensive side of the ball has been, a little bit more difficult. And with Skylar Cassidy coming over, yeah, there might be some apprehension in regards to some of the North Texas defenses. But I think that if Eric Morse is looking at this strategically, if Skylar Cassidy had access to guys like Wendell Gregory and Deshaun Brown and Jaleel Johnson and LaDainian Fields, if he had that kind of player at his disposal, what would the Skylar Cassidy defense look like? But again, this is a perfect recipe for success in Stillwater. We need to get offense back to what it used to be. We need to get to a place where putting up 40, 50 points on a regular basis it's not crazy. And if that happens, I do think that you see much more of the improvements on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of that is going to come with success, right? A lot of that is going to come in the recruiting and transfer portal era. And you're seeing with Vanderbilt that you can be at the very bottom of your conference. And then if you do a few things right very quickly, you can shoot to the top pretty quickly. And thankfully, unlike Vanderbilt, we have almost 2 decades under Mike Gundy of a lot of success, a lot of wins, a lot of big-time bowl games, a lot of opportunities to play for conference titles. And a lot of that was based off of the success of the offense. So the fact that Eric Morris is coming in with his play calling ability, you're assuming he's going to bring the quarterback coach Brophy with him. You're assuming he's probably going to bring offense coordinator Jordan Davis with him. But even if that's not the case, this is a dude that is comfortable with calling plays, and that was exactly what we got out of Mike Gundy in the beginning. Mike Gundy was the offense coordinator and the head coach for the first few years before he found a way to implement his offensive creativity into other coordinators that he felt like he could trust. There's another component to that as well. A lot of the coaches that we're hearing that Coach Morris is going to bring with him to Stillwater are some of the dudes that go back to Incarnate Word. So again, there are a ton of similarities between Coach Eric Morris and Mike Gundy. The quarterback aspect of it obviously is a little bit different. Eric Morris catching passes as opposed to throwing passes. But how is it that Mike Gundy was a legitimate quarterback, the best Big 8 quarterback potentially of all time, but selection of quarterbacks was his only really big hang-up up until this NIL and transfer portal kind of caught up to him. But, the best quarterbacks at Oklahoma State were all backups. Brandon Weeden was a backup. Mason Rudolph was a backup. Taylor Cornelius was a backup. Spencer Sanders was a backup. Drew Mestemaker obviously was a backup through his entire high school career pretty much. Yeah, he played safety and he played a punter as well, which does show that he has a little bit more athleticism than perhaps his frame or his rushing yards might indicate. But if you watch the American Conference game, Drew Mestemaker does have some wheels. He can pull it down. He can make some crazy stuff happen. And this is all through the lenses of a former Big 12 wide receiver that got to learn from Coach Leach and Cliff Kingsbury, and he got to work with Lincoln Riley. This coaching tree that Coach Leach has kind of put forth, it naturally fits best in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Thankfully, Texas Tech is very competitive, and they really should have an opportunity to make some waves in the CFP. But that might be the only concern, is that it makes sense for Coach Eric Morris to want to return back home at some point in time. But the consensus nationally being, well, Eric Morris is going to be at Oklahoma State. He's going to get him good again in 3-4 years. He's gone. First of all, he has a 5-year contract, which we're about to get to. Not that means a hill of beans in this sport anymore, or any sport anymore. The contractual obligations seem to be, pushed to the side if it benefits a certain number of people behind closed doors. I don't think that's going to be a massive concern with Coach Eric Morris. I think that if he's successful and his wife Maggie loves Stillwater area and his sons are having a great time in school, it's going to take Joe McGuire retiring or getting fired or Texas Tech going in the absolute toilet for me to see him walking away. I don't think this is a typical situation where he's going to jump for a Penn State or Ohio State or Florida just because it's available. If that were the case, he probably wouldn't be in Stillwater, Oklahoma right now. it's hard not to be excited about the foundation that he comes from, because it does align with Oklahoma State. It does fit in precisely with what Mike Gundy was doing for the most part in the beginning of his tenure as a head man in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So at the end of the day, if you watch his press conference, I think that was one of the biggest things that I took away. The family aspect is extremely important to him, and Oklahoma State operates more like a family than almost any other school in the country. And we know that because we've had transfers from other places, and we've had people leave Stillwater to go elsewhere and then talk about how it's just not quite the same. So the future idea that he's going to use this as a jump-off school, I don't really see that. Well, yeah, Texas Tech changes things. But with the success they're having now, with what they seemingly have set in stone, with Joey McGuire's age, I think we probably got a long time of Coach Eric Morris being successful. And so while you're out there, he mentioned in his press conference, he wants to ingratiate himself with the Stillwater community. So make sure that you say hey to him. He wants introductions. He wants to get to know Cowboy country a little bit more. And yeah, but from my angle, there's a lot of quality Oklahoma State information out there. I think it's getting more and more visible recently. But at the end of the day, that's what all of us should be all about, is getting Oklahoma State on a bigger household, kind of mantle. We need to be more nationally talked about, more nationally known. And previously, Oklahoma State specifically kept everything so in-house that I don't think we ever got the full benefits of what the Oklahoma State brand could potentially give us when it comes to recruiting and the transfer portal and all of that. So thankfully, Eric Morris is here, and it's hard not to be excited, and it's hard not to look at his upbringing and think anything other than, yeah, if we treat him right, if things go right, and Texas Tech is still successful, we shouldn't have any issues keeping Eric Morris in Stillwater, America. It is that time of year for you to hammer the over with the NFL, and Sundays do move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels completely different. That's what makes live betting so much more exciting. You're not just watching the game. You're extremely invested, and you're reacting in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, and every highlight play. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. If a receiver's getting hot, a defense is tightening up, or you can feel the momentum shifting, jump in on the action. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly, so you're ready to rock and roll. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet the next touchdown, the next drive result, field goal. Doesn't matter. You can stay locked in with every snap, every drive, and every possibility if you have FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, make sure that you visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Make sure that you head on over to FanDuel. It is the bee's knees for all of your betting needs. The game moves fast, so move faster with FanDuel. All right, now we get to jump into the contractual conversation. We touched on it the other day, but the details have kind of been brought to light. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. And this contract that he has, it's, I don't know. I don't necessarily, you don't want to say anything's foolproof anymore, simply because everything changes, right? But at the end of the day, the $3.8 million that Arkansas fans were saying was almost embarrassing has a little bit of an additional layer to it. So it's not just a 5-year, $3.8 million annual contract, but it also does have some things built into it. $100,000 pay raise each February 1st, with the deal expiring January 31st, 2031. So the base salary by the numbers, and this was on Go Pokes 247. 3.8 right away, 2027, 3.9, $4 million by 2028, and then $4.2 million by 2030. And if he were to leave early before February 1st, 2027, in between then and January 31st, 2028, there would be a $4 million buyout. February 1st, 2028 through 2029 would be a $3 million. And then it obviously stair steps its way down to $1 million and 2029 to 2030. And then there is no more buyout as of January 31st, 2031. Also, due to the contract, there would be a 90-day clause that if Eric Morse were to leave, that the payment would need to be agreed upon within 90 days of the party putting it in writing, not to exceed a year. Some of the other things, if Oklahoma State fires Morris, he will be due 75% of the remaining contract if fired before January 29th, 2029, and 60% will be owed to him if he's fired between February 1st, 2029 and the end of his contract. He could add an additional $1 million based on annual performance incentives. Those incentives are not cumulative. Only the highest financial incentive achieved will be paid per the contract. Those incentives are as follows: $150,000 for appearing in a bowl game, $250,000 for appearing in the first round of the CFP or appearing in the Big 12 championship game, and also finishing first or tied for first in the Big 12. Hopefully we don't have to talk about that tied for first crap. Hopefully it seems like Brett Yormark and the Big 12 are going to fix that. $375,000 for winning the Big 12 title or reaching the CFP quarterfinals, $500,000 for reaching the college football playoff semifinals, $750,000. Yeah, words are hard for me, so are numbers. If reaching the college football playoff national championship game, and an extra $1 million for winning the CFP national title game. Other incentives and benefits: the club membership to be mutually determined, 12 tickets to Boone Pickens Stadium for Oklahoma State games. This goes spouse, family, travel, temporary housing, so on and so forth. It goes through the ringer there. But again, I think that's yet another reason why Oklahoma State fans shouldn't be freaking out about the idea of Eric Morris leaving anytime soon. He came here for a reason. He chose Oklahoma State over a multitude of other places for a reason. And we all know that if he is massively successful, right, in his recent press conference, he kind of said, "Watch me work." And he said, "Hell yes, we can win a damn championship." Some other interesting things. This is off of Pistols Firing. Quote-wise, he said, "I think there's definitely a formula to success. I think we're seeing that the parity in college football right now. You're seeing what Indiana is able to do. They've lost more games than any other school in the history of college football. And then obviously right now they're absolutely dominating. And it's not, wool being pulled over anybody's eyes. Kind of like last year, I think Indiana was a little bit of a flash on the pan. That's not the case this year. This Indiana team is legitimate as all get out. They can run the ball. They can throw the ball. They have good special teams. They can bleed the clock. They can hit long bombs if necessary. It's pretty impressive. So if this is what we're trying to replicate, I'm all for it. Some more quotes. They've done it with the transfer portal at Indiana. They've done it with developing and retaining players. I think the unique thing is that 10 to 15 years ago, these programs were saturated with all the talent. Their 2s and 3s were better than a bunch of people's 1s and 2s, talking about the Alabamas of the world. This is a new landscape, and it's allowed there to be a pathway to be really good and flip a roster in a hurry very quickly. He further went on to say, "When I was going to Washington State, I had such a great freshman campaign." Moore said in an interview with CBS Sports, "It was tough at that point. It was tough for a kid like that to turn down the money that was being offered to him. It was tough telling Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss he was going to stay at Washington State because of the comfort being a starter and staying in the same system." Again, this is accentuating. I think that if we do things the right way and things go well for him, he's not a flash in the pan, jump off school kind of guy. Lastly, he said, "Now our problem in North Texas hasn't been the recruitment or the development piece. It's been the retention piece. Like, how do we keep all of those players? Because right now, from our first offensive line unit at North Texas, there are 4 of those guys that are starting at P4 schools right now that we couldn't financially afford to keep them there. We have quarterbacks that have both transferred up and done good things where they decided to go." Speaking of the recruiting process, Morris has largely proven he can do more with less. Oklahoma State's 52nd ranked recruiting class compared to his 123rd was this season. 2024, we were 53. They were 72. And 2023, we were 55. They were 99. And you go back 2021, we were 31st. Where he was at, they were 137th. They were 242nd, 167th, 184th. And again, this is the same guy. This is the same classes that included guys like Cam Ward. Continuing in the quotes, one of the proudest things to me in the accomplishments that I've had, people know where Incarnate Word is now. To be able to change a program, to put it on the map and become a national powerhouse in the last 5 or 6 years in the FCS, he's very proud of that. Building things up. And when people tell me I can't do something, it's one of the greatest motivators that I have. And we heard that from Chris Level as well when he was on the show. I'm one of those kids that said, okay, watch me work. That also gave me hope. We're not far off from that where I was. Professionally, for me, it's as simple as this. Can we win a championship here? My answer to that is hell yes, we can win a damn championship here. We've already won a Big 12 title, so I'm assuming that he was reaching beyond that. Eric Morris is talking about a national championship. Eric Morris is talking about that if you look at what happened at Indiana, if it's done the right way, he can do the same thing. Watch me work. Let me get my North Texas players here with the Oklahoma State players that we want to keep on top of this recruiting class. Let me get active in the transfer portal and see if I can't instantaneously make Oklahoma State better again. Now, better is the operative word. I think that it's fair that after what we've gone through the last 2 seasons, if he were to come in and win 5 to 7 games immediately without expectations of Drew Mestemaker, Caleb Hawkins, the whole 9 yards, that would be a win, right? Year 2, you need to try to get to that 8, 9, 10 win frame. And then year 3, like, we're ready to go. We're ready to not only win a Big 12 title, but year 3, if all of this comes to fruition, we could be talking about Oklahoma State making a little bit of a run in the CFP, much like we're talking about and seeing with Texas Tech right now. Oh, my Lanta, you've been waiting on this one for quite some time, as have I. It is time to be the king-a-ling-ding-a-ling of your bedroom once again. Let's talk about something, dudes, because most of us ain't going to bring it up, but obviously we probably should. Stress from work, money, life. It doesn't just switch on and off at night. And when it shows up at the worst possible time, Rougiette Ready is designed to help you take back control. Rougiette Ready is a next-generation prescription treatment created to support both brain and the body so you can feel present, confident, and ready whenever the moment matters most. Rougiette Ready combines 3 clinically proven ingredients in one mint that dissolves under your tongue so it's absorbed fast. The science behind Rougiette Ready stands out. 3 clinically proven ingredients in one formula designed for both mental and physical readiness. It's easy to understand why over 150,000 men have already made the switch to Rougiette Ready. Most men are ready in about 15 minutes, so you can stay present, confident, and in control when the moment is right. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, now is the time. Head on over to Rougiette.com/LockedOnCollege, all one word. That is Rougiette, RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege, all one word, to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rougiette Ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready in the moment, a.k.a. go take control of you being in the king dang-a-ling of your bedroom once again. All right, last but not least, we got to talk a little bit about wrestling. We got a little bit of a break here before we get to more wrestling and more basketball, obviously, of the Bedlam variety, which I cannot wait to get into. Wrestling, we went on the road and, we brought back some hardware. From what I gathered, it was a little bit of a later addition to the Cougar Clash for Oklahoma State. I don't recall it being early on the schedule. But the beauty of this is we already know that Oklahoma State's primarily led by the youth of this roster that is currently number 5 in America. The biggest story of wrestling right now isn't Oklahoma State, Penn State. It's not Nebraska. It's Iowa State. Iowa State is the biggest story in the country right now. And I can't wait for that matchup. But Oklahoma State went to Edwardsville, Illinois. Alex Facundo, Ronnie Ramirez, and Zach Ryder all got to secure titles at their respective weight classes. David Taylor said it was a good weekend. I thought we learned a lot today. We were able to get a lot of guys matches. We scored some points. We made some mistakes. And now we've got some areas that we know we need to improve on. Along with the 3 champions at the Cougar Clash, which fielded number 9, Illinois, number 12, Mizzou, number 16, Northern Iowa, number 22, Little Rock. Northern Colorado was in there as well with Brown and SIUE. Ronnie Ramirez claimed the first title for the Cowboys. He went undefeated on the day. Next, Zach Ryder also went undefeated, 3-0 on the day. Alex Facundo was technical foul and bonus points in his way all the way to the end. He outscored his opponents 36-5. Then we got to see some new dudes. 197-pounder Austin Johnson made his Oklahoma State debut, and he notched the first 2 wins of his collegiate career while taking placing second at the Cougar Classic. Casey Swiderski, he also placed second, going 3-1. Gary Steen got his first opportunity at 125 pounds. Cody at Rutledge got his opportunity at 165, and Trevor Dops got an opportunity as well at 197. Everybody looked and performed pretty admirably. Sam Smith got an opportunity. Colton Burton got an opportunity, and they both finished 5th at the Cougar Classic. At the end of the day, I like the fact that we're getting all of these young guys, more opportunities. Ishmael Guerrero got to get in there. Ben Mower, who took out Cody Merrill and the wrestle-offs before the season, he got to get in there. They both got to take home 6th place as well. JJ McComas took home 8th at 141 pounds. Cutter Sheets, he was the only Cowboy that fell short of placing. It's all right. We got time. Richie Figueroa, Ren Sakamoto, and Bo Hickman also dropped their bouts on the day. Richie Figueroa has been, man, there might need to be a study done on Richie Figs. After winning a national championship at Arizona State, it didn't quite go as well for him last year. There was a lot of thoughts that him coming to Oklahoma State was going to do exactly what he needed, but it's just not working out for whatever reason. However, now that Iowa State is competing at the level that they are, knocking off Iowa and the Cyhawk, man, what a big deal. And now that matchup against Iowa State, obviously, it gets a lot bigger. So now Oklahoma State gets themselves an opportunity that if you can beat Iowa State and then you can right that wrong against Iowa at the end of the year, we're rolling into nationals in a much better position than most every other team in America. So shout out to David Taylor, getting a lot of these young guys that haven't had the opportunity to wrestle matches, because at the end of the day, that's the best way that you're going to learn. So it's good to see some of these other Cowboys get opportunities and to come home with some hardware. Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere, so happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you liked it. Dislike if you didn't, that's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast and people out there, you know the drill. You're everything that makes this work. Without you, this would just this would be kind of crazy. So I appreciate what you do. Go do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. Alrighty, y'all. Later, taters.